years ago, they made movies as well as now. That would have been the silent era. So I decided to go and watch one. A movie from 1922. I took a pick of the top 5 movies of that... of what we have now that they think was the best movies of that. I don't know who picked the pick, but one of them was Das Weib Des Pharao, which the official translation is The Loves of the Pharaoh, but it actually translates as The Wife of the Pharaoh. So it's a German movie made by Ernest Lubitsch, who went to Hollywood afterwards. And everybody, the story as they tell it now is that he made this movie to show that he could make an epic, and that's what his into Hollywood was. I don't know how he sold that to the people who he was making the movie with, because it sounds like a really bad deal for the people, the people he leaves behind. Because basically, I'm gonna spend all your money, hopefully make a success, and then I'm gonna bail. So yeah, I don't think that's how it went then. This is how we think it went now. The movie, he did try to make an epic. It's got crowd scenes, and it's got fights, an epic story, epic love story as well, political story, epic sceneries, and it's, of course, would have been in German with German title cards, and the version I saw actually had subtitles in English added. They were pretty bad, because I can also read the German, not fast, but I can read it. And I was already fighting with the very first translation. You know how it goes. So. One of the things you have to keep in mind with a movie this old is that you're going to have, the first thing you're going to run into is quality. This one is, there is a restored version of it, but parts of it are lost. Some were found, not all of it. There's about 1/10 of the movie is missing. And so in the restoration they have the events as a title card, and then maybe a still, a publicity still that I have of the scene, even though the scene is not there anymore. I don't think in this case it's damaging it much. What they did right with the restoration is fixing the speed, because these things before 1930 they had variable speeds, and so some did 16 frames per second and some did 18 frames per second, and then if you play it on a machine that does a different frame rate, you get this jerky movements that you're used to for silent movies. This is not necessary. That they fixed that. This one, I don't know if maybe Lubitsch actually filmed this on a 24, or they transposed it to 24. They had 3 prints to work from. They had a very good print. All of them were incomplete. A very good print that they used most footage of. That was the best, the closest to the original, because you get a copy of a copy of a copy. It degrades, and it was a mostly unplayed, as close to the originals as they had, but it was incomplete. Then they had a version that had the love scene cut out of it and had hyped up all the action sequences, and they used some of that. And they had another version who actually hyped up the love scene, the love story more, but still between them they're still short of 10% of the movie. So we're missing key scenes. You can still follow the movie as such. It doesn't really matter, actually, because the story is such little bit here, little bit there anyway, that it doesn't... The fact that there's bits missing and you have to go by a title card, I mean, it's disappointing. Yes, you want to see the action, but it doesn't... The choice of making this movie about ancient Egypt is interesting, because this is actually... The film came out in February of 1922, and King Tut's tomb wasn't discovered until November of that year. So if you go, hey, this is the same year, it has something to do with the Egyptian fever of King Tut. No, this was before. And the reason that this is interesting to Lubitsch to film, for a bunch of Germans to film this, is that the romance of discovery in Egypt has been going on for for over a century. When Napoleon did a campaign in Egypt, he dropped off a couple of more than a handful of enlightened new, you call them proto-archaeologists, people who are interested in history, with new ideas, with the revolutionary ideas, and wanted to discover. And since that time, which is about 1800 until 1922, there have been discoveries coming in from Egypt in a steady stream. So this is an interesting period for them to think about, even before the King Tut thing. The King Tut thing was basically the cherry on the cake for this film. I'm sure Lubitsch was going happy with how much promotion he was just getting from King Tut afterwards, So keeping that in mind, it's 1922. In 1922, they're not even in the flapper age yet. They're still doing a post-World War I fashion and ideas, and this is early. This is really early, and you can see that in the outfits, the choice of outfits, because it's supposed to be set in Egypt. It's supposed to be hot. Now everybody's wearing way too much clothing, and especially the girls, because Egyptian, they know this. There's a lot of Egyptian wall paintings have come out. I mean, it's the most prolific thing that is left of Egypt is the wall, is all the murals with all the scantily clothed dancers. And this story is about a slave girl, and she's wearing like 4 layers of stuff. What makes the film makes the film interesting, but also hard to watch, is that this is very early in storytelling tropes. They don't have them yet, basically, and that's their problem. They don't know how to tell their story, and it's a 6-act story it's about 100 minutes long. So an hour and a half with a little, and another 10 minutes that they know that's lost. So it should have run 100 and just short of 2 hours. And it's in 6 acts, and they have for some reason they don't have enough clout to actually tell the story. I mean, the epic part of it, that's fine with the crowd scenes and the scenery, and they also have great actors. They have don't have them quite in the right age range, because they have 4 great older guys, which is not ideal. They have a young guy who was really too old to play the romantic lead, and they have 2 girls who may or may not be good at acting, but they don't get a chance. So, but the older guys, they are good. We have the Pharaoh himself, and we're talking 60 and above. I mean, for looks. So maybe the actors may have been a little younger, because people from 100 years ago, they look older than they do now. They really do. But we have the Pharaoh, his priests, and his vizier, his chancellor, or what you want to call him, and we have the foreign king of Ethiopia, and of course that's paint job, but it's in Germany, so it's for a paint job and it is blackface as such. They do realize that a different they give them the right kind of hair, which is very often what they don't do for black faces, just smear face black and give them straight hair. They don't have straight hair in this. They have the hair everywhere. They have the curly hair everywhere. So that they actually did think about it. What should we do with it? They have nobody available to play this anyway. The way that we live in a world where different peoples go everywhere, 100 years ago, forget it. There was just nobody. It's not even a question of, oh, shall we ask somebody? There's just nobody. So they get a really good actor to play the king. It's not a great role. It's basically just picking a fight with everything. So it's not a great role. But they got one of the best actors to play that. One of the most famous actors for them at the time. They have the priest has this wonderful face, and Lubitsch knows this, so he does close-ups, which was not the norm at the time. So I watched another couple of other films of the time and later. Close-ups were not a thing yet, not on a regular basis. They have this lovely close-up, which in the restored version, great, has this craggly face and being upset because the Pharaoh's doing stupid things. And so they have the acting talent. Even without the text, they have the acting talent. But they can't seem to pick the story to tell. So you have the young slave girl who is seen by the young architect, who is a little bit too old. But okay, the architect, the son of the architect, who was also an architect, and he falls in love with her, and he robs her away from the king, who is then mad about it, and goes to the Pharaoh and says, oh, because he was on the way to the Pharaoh with his own daughter to marry, I suppose. That storyline just went nowhere. She just disappeared. And then says to the Pharaoh, I want this slave girl dead. And then the Pharaoh promises that. And then they, for some reason, the lovers couple walks into a forbidden area in Egypt. I don't know why. And then the Pharaoh finds her out and is about to condemn them to death. Then he sees the slave girl and falls madly in love. And the whole thing devolves from there. This is already pretty devolved, but it gets worse. If they had because it comes to a war and it comes to the Pharaoh actually dies, but then and then the girl he married the girl, and then she has to be the queen and has a duty, and then he comes back and it's a mess. If they picked one of these subjects if they have this wonderful priest guy and they have this Pharaoh, if they'd written a story where the priest just sees this Pharaoh devolve because he's madly in love with this woman who is completely doesn't want him and is completely the wrong kind of person anyway, that could have been an interesting story. But it's not what they did. It's and I can say now, sitting here 100 years later, that this is not the right way to tell the stories, but that I have 100 years of experienced storytellers telling me stories. So I know now, but on the other end, in 1922, they're not complete savages. They've had lots of really good writers beforehand to show them what a real story is. And the thing is, this has no theme. It has no direction. And yet it is on one of the top 5 films of the year. Is that then the special effects? There really isn't any. Is it the scenery? It's okay. I mean, now you would see that in a fan production, that kind of scenery. I mean, it was big. Is that enough? Is the crowd scenes? Yes, I think they had at least 200, between 200 and 1,000 people there at one point. That was good. They had them pretty coordinated. That was nice. Is that enough? They have a lack of technology. of technical skills in filmmaking. So they do have the close-up, which was very new, but they don't have a pan shot. So every single shot is stand. That's it. There's never a two shots. There is never a pan of any sort. Just shots or close shots. And usually only the one of the types. Not now you take a picture of the wide shot, then you take a medium shot, then you take a close-up, and then you do the whole thing again from a different angle. And then if you have to show a room, you go whoop pan. And, they don't have any of that. And that's partly a technical skill, because a pan, if you think about it, it has to pivot on a point, and it has to go zzz, and not because that looks really bad. So that's a technical issue. But also, wanting to have a pan is something that you have to decide on, that you want to have that. And then the people who watch it have to learn how to see a pan, because if you think about it, somebody who's always looked at a static image, suddenly the whole thing moves. You go, oh my god, what I'm seeing now, I'm gonna go, I don't feel so good. It's a matter of learning. And at this point they have what they have is pretty good negative. The material for making the footage is it can pick up a lot of details. That's why the restoration is pretty good of the best part of it. The good print gives a really good restoration. So that's worth seeing. One of the things that makes it less interesting for us is the way they think about what is a pretty person and what is a not pretty person, because the person who is obviously meant to be the young hero is too old, and they give him a Egyptian style haircut with the line here and the line here, but the way he messes it up, that means it's always like that, and the hair is like that, and he has this really squared jaw, not in the right way, and the makeup is ugly on him. So that makes it harder to watch. I'm not sure. He's okay as an actor. I think the older guys are better. But if you making a movie with only 4 older guys is not going to be easy if you want to make an epic with supposedly major fight scenes. They weren't there either. Every time they did have horses and they had sands. Okay, we're doing great for Egypt. But then they would ride up for a battle and wave around paper swords, basically cardboard swords, and then it'd come to 2 blows, and then there would be a cut in the scene. So the cuts are really weird as well. I don't know if that's because Lubitsch was filming in a place that is not very used to making quality epics, if you want to call it that, or if that is the time. I think they should be able to do this better. Is it worth seeing? As an interesting, the story can be followed. It's not impossible to follow the story, because I have watched movies where that was the case. But because it is set in Egypt such a long time ago, they give you enough information that you need to follow the story. Like this person who wears this, they don't just go by, oh, he wears this, therefore he's the pharaoh. No, they say he's the pharaoh. When they walk into the compound that's forbidden, you've already been told that this place is actually forbidden. If it had been a contemporary movie, they might not have told you these things that are common knowledge. Like now we have a common knowledge that you can just WhatsApp somebody. In 100 years, that common knowledge will be something else, and you would have to say that, okay, in this period, people used WhatsApp to WhatsApp and Zoom and Facebook and Twitter, and what does that mean? So if I just say I twittered, and just left it at that and went on with the rest of my movie, then a person 100 years from now would not know what the hell. They'd have to look it up. What is Twitter? What does it do? It's very specific what Twitter does if you think about it. Because this film is set in a time that is not in any way part of 100 years ago, they are free to inform you of what you needed to know to actually follow the story. Also, they are free to do politically whatever they like, because they can make the king. They have no allegiance to any king or president, or they have no allegiance to the pharaoh, so they can make him out to be a really good guy or a really bad guy or whatever they want. They have no allegiance to a Greek slave girl, so they can make her out whatever they want. The priest, same thing. Not anybody there is sacred that they have to be worked around, whereas you do a contemporary thing, you get a completely different story. That's why one of the reasons why I picked this one to watch is because I knew they have the same problem that I have on the subject matter. You have to be reminded, oh, this is a pharaoh, that's what he does. This is an architect, and that's what he does in a pharaoh time. And so, as such, this movie is completely watchable. It's not a good movie, though. I'm glad it worked for Lubitsch to get him where he wanted to go, but I think he could have done better for some of these actors. He could have done more to showcase what they could do. It would have been a better movie if they had picked one story and not like 4 stories to tell, and then and picked the ones with the 4 gentlemen in it, because they were the best, basically. So, now that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it.